In this video, we're going to be talking about what does a social media manager job actually do in this modern era. Now, the name of this job and its responsibilities, I think, has changed over time. So some of the content out there describing what this job has done in the past is not exactly what it is today. So if you're considering getting a job like this, stay tuned because we're going to be unpacking and really seeing with real job postings out there what this job actually is in this current era of 2026 and beyond. Now, another important point is you're probably wondering, who are you to tell me what this job does? Well, my name is Will Chow, and I've worked over 9 years in digital marketing for different agencies. I work at agencies because you grow and learn. You get a lot more exposure than you do working for one company. So I've worked across many different agencies across various forms of digital marketing, including social media marketing and management. So yeah, let's get right into it. By the way, if you're interested in coaching to get your first or second job and level up your income, link is down in the description if you want to reach out. Okay, so let's cover some of the big things that a social media manager is supposed to do according to what the web says, what other experts and videos online say. And then we're going to contrast that with real job postings to really show if that's actually true. So the first thing that they claim is you manage accounts, you monitor client pages, and you basically respond to comments, remove bad reviews or fake reviews. You know, it depends on the client and their ethics on what that way goes. But that's a very common thing. Remove negative comments or just respond professionally and appropriately. And then basically cover what's called nowadays as community management. Now, in the real world, from my experience, to give you my real take on this, I would say this has actually evolved into its own job. It can be part of a social media manager, but it really depends on the company and job posting. And usually larger companies will kind of dedicate this to its own role. And there's pros and cons to that, which we'll get into in another video. But, you know, for me, I think the con to that is like what's the income progression? You know, like you can't really grow that much in that profession. I mean, you technically can by, you know, jumping to larger and larger and bigger brands and you have the track record of managing that community, or you start branching out to managing forums. I've seen some social community managers do this. But with that being said, let me actually jump into an actual job posting. And this one's really interesting because it's by Duolingo, which is, it's been making waves on the internet recently because it's been posting these jobs with incredibly higher than average salaries. And a lot of news articles was written about Duolingo recently because they're basically trying to show the world that we actually value social media and we're willing to pay above average rates for top talent. So a lot of people saw that, wrote articles about it. It was in the news. And yeah, they're really investing in social media, which is kind of different from many companies who are kind of stepping away or outsourcing it to AI. But regardless, let's actually take a look at some of these things in the job posting. So I like to start with credentials. You need 2 or 3 years of social media experience at a major brand. Wit, you're known as the clever one in your group. You're a content creator at your core. You're in tune with social trends and good interpersonal skills. Okay, so not the biggest hurdle, but let's see what they're actually doing as a community manager. Remember, this is a dedicated community manager role. 1, you own the Duolingo tone in the comment section and community and manage social posts. Work alongside our social team to create viral community management moments in our comment section. Inspire UGC, that's user-generated content moments, through community content on our channels. You embody learners first by cultivating relationships with our most passionate community members. Work closely with the merch team to surprise and delight the most engaged fans. Evolve our short-form video community strategy through experiments and iterations. And then you track metrics alongside the analytics team to related to community engagement, segmentation, and growth. So off the bat, this is literally a role that in the past, maybe 5-6 years ago, would have been a part of a social media manager, but now because they have to do so much, it's been splintered off into its own role, which I think makes perfect sense for large brands because they literally have hundreds, if not thousands of comments that you have to respond to on a weekly basis. And you notice there's little elements of other parts that we'll cover that a social media manager does, but even these are only focused on the community management, such as analytics. And that's actually a good segue into another piece that a social media manager would do, which is track analytics performance. So you are reporting and analyzing the numbers. I mean, I think that's really important. And me being a data-driven person, it's an advantage because many social media marketers, they're just very creative. They don't have the data piece, but you need the data piece to really prove your worth, drive business growth, and improve your own content strategy. I think the real turning point was back when Mr. Beast revealed how numbers-driven he was. And this was like way before he became the #1 most subscribed YouTuber at like 500 million subscribers. And that was when there was like a changing of the guard where back in the day, some of the larger creators like PewDiePie or, you know, all these other creators, Smosh, they were more kind of creative based. Logan Paul, or way back in the day, Kev Jumba, Ryan Higa. These people, they didn't really look at the numbers. They're just like, you know, this is going to be the funniest idea. But Mr. Beast was so precise that he knew exactly when the audience dropped off, and he knew, okay, that was a little 2-second scene that was something I'll cut in the future. So analytics is really important. You need to know your numbers, retention rate, click-through rate, conversion rate, engagement rate, comments, likes, and all these things. So working with analytics is really important. Now, for a true social media person, you're probably going to be doing more analytics than just community-based ones because you're not just a community manager. Not to say that that isn't a really awesome role on its own. I don't want to diminish that role in any way. So the third thing is create content. Now, this is a tricky one because if you see something on a job posting that's asking you to do the editing, the designing, all that work, those are nowadays full-time jobs in and of itself. So if you're expected to do all of that at a very high level and create content beyond just like fairly basic posts and videos and captions, that's a red flag. That is a red flag. This may be a startup or small business asking and expecting way more than they realize they can get. So you should not be required to be a pro designer. If you are, the title should be, have designer somewhere in it, graphic designer or video editor. If you haven't noticed, a lot of this organic content on YouTube, Instagram, it's top notch. The competition is like at an all-time high. Like 10 years ago, like you could post some crappy video and get away with it. Now there's all sorts of whiz-bang editing and people sinking hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars into editors for shorts and long-form content. So that is something worth being careful of. Now let's actually check out a real social media manager resume, job posting, to see if that tracks. So this is one I pulled up for a company called Davis Ellen Advertising. I've never heard of them, but they are a legit job posting and the role is still active. So this is fresh off the press. In this role, you will, be responsible for creating and implementing a social media strategy, serve as a community manager for select agency clients, create monthly content calendars, launch and manage promotions and campaigns, monitors discussions, posts, and comments, daily engagement management, interacting with consumers, influencers, and fans, work with digital and creative teams to ensure campaigns reflect the client's overall brand, optimize campaigns with strategic direction, manage organic paid social for select agencies, and measure and provide in-depth analysis for social media programs in monthly reports. That's it. Now that's a lot. That is a lot. I would say this is an agency that is putting a lot on the plate, probably pushing it, but not too much. Like I said, if you look at the specifics, they're not asking you to actually design and actually build these photos or videos yourself. They specifically mentioned that you will be working with creative teams to do that. So that's actually a good thing. That's a green flag. It indicates that this isn't a role that is like completely unaware that, you know, a video editor and designer are separate full-time jobs. It is asking a lot. As I mentioned, the community manager piece is usually shifted off into its own role, but in this case, you're doing that as well as the other stuff. But like I said, I think it's, you know, agency life is harder. They're asking for more and more tasks, but I wouldn't call this role unresponsible or overindulging to the point of ridiculousness. I would say it's bordering on that, but it's doable. And that segues into another key piece of social media management, which was mentioned at the start of these bullet points, creating a social media strategy. Now, depending on your seniority or juniority, I don't know if that's a word, but if you're a senior or if you're more entry level, you may or may not be working on the strategy. I think this is the best part because you're no longer some grunt worker just taking orders. You're actually building the strategy of, you know, what type of content you're creating, what trends you're copying, how you're going to grow this brand, which is a good and bad thing because the responsibility, if it fails, and your job and your livelihood is also on the line because you are responsible. So creating that strategy, that social media plan, you know, it may seem daunting at first, especially when you're just new to this, but especially if you get really good at this or you've had years of experience studying thousands of influencers, which I've been, and I'm not alone. There's thousands of others like me who just love social media. Then it becomes more natural and more exciting actually than to just be like told, okay, this is what you're going to create and put it into, you know, this and that. And a content calendar is actually a good keyword to look for because that's an indicator of, okay, you're not doing all the grunt work and overworked. You're actually planning it and then creating a calendar and then working with the team so that you work with the team so that they get it out. Okay, another piece of it is creating content. And then the last piece is staying on top of trends. Okay, what type of videos are trending? What type of ideas are trending? Nowadays, for example, it's this S tier, you know, ranking everything from S to A, B, C, D tier format, which I actually really love on YouTube. These are really fun videos to watch, and I have a huge anime background, so that's where they stole this tier system from, I believe, and it just works really well for a lot of different things, whether it's I'm watching a fitness video or a make money online video or anything really. You could do it for anything, ranking the best Super Smash Bros. Characters by tiers. So these are trends that like are hot right now, and if you copy that trend, you're going to get a lot of views. So if you're not aware of these trends or these memes, there's a lot of memes popping up right now, then you're kind of out of the loop or out of the market and therefore unable to really get the most traffic, engagement, and revenue out of social media. So those are really important points. Now, you might be like, we just looked at one job posting. Let's check out another one to see if this is actually legit. Okay, we got a few more here. This one is going to be a very big brand. It's actually a brand I really like. It's a clothing store that I buy clothes from sometimes, Uniqlo. So this is the associate manager of social media. This is kind of a highbrow career, but it's actually not that like senior level because it's only asking for a bachelor's degree in marketing, branding, or related skills, and then 2 or 3 years of professional experience in social media. Now, don't get me wrong, this role is probably highly sought after and contested. On LinkedIn, it's saying over 100 applicants have already applied. So this is something that I would say is I wouldn't go for this at first. It's better, you have a better chance of finding a less well-known brand. But let's take a look at what they're doing. They're managing content calendars, scheduling and posting across all Uniqlo social media accounts, collaborating with cross-functional teams, as mentioned, to ensure product priorities, brand announcements, corporate initiatives. So that's more about sourcing information like announcements and news. Lead content production in stores, in studio, and/or brand events, inclusive of creative ideation, casting, logistics, and set design. So this one's really interesting because you're not just on a computer all day. You actually get to go in field, maybe to like store openings, and then maybe even film some of the store openings and then come up with the ideas to turn this into a social media format that might go viral. Lead, let's see here, ideate creative content strategies, address key interests for respective channels, tailor content to be relevant, organize and maintain necessary assets, imagery, and related materials. By the way, you'll notice that some of these are going to be much more important than others. Some of these are kind of just fluff to fill space in a way, or just more minor. Create synergy with influencer programs by working with PR/influencer team. Manage comments and direct messages. Okay, so there you go. They're fusing community management with this one. Manage compiling all internal and external reporting, analyzing results for ongoing improvements to reach our follower growth and engagement goals. Maintain keen understanding of culturally relevant events, industry news, and trends, like I said, to expertly inform real-time social strategies related to Gen Z and Gen Alpha. And then lastly, other duties assigned by supervisor. Okay, that last one's kind of a filler, but I say this how I do because when you're applying to a job, my recommendation, my advice is you have to find the 2 to 4 bullets that really matter. Usually in a job posting, they don't really need you to have every qualification. Some people kind of disqualify themselves and get discouraged because they don't have every single bullet. But you don't need every single bullet. You need the 2 to 4 bullet points that they really, really care about. And if you can knock that 1 or 2 bullet points out of the park, the rest doesn't really matter. So if I had to guess for this one, they're probably looking for someone who has knocked it out of the park, maybe with previous companies they've worked for in these departments and shown numbers or deliverables or portfolios showing that they're really good at these things. Maybe even grew a follower count or viewership by 100x or 10x. So these are really the things that they're most looking for. So that's how you want to think when you're doing this. So this tracks exactly with what I said, but there's some interesting other things here. As I mentioned, they're working. This is a role that requires field work where you're actually going in person, which some people might love, and then some really being tapped into the Gen Z and Gen Alpha audience, and then really collaborating across various accounts to learn about not just news and announcements, but ongoing and helping report on your results. It says here, compiling internal and external reporting and analyzing results for ongoing improvements to reach goals, follower and engagement goals. That might sound like jargon, which it kind of is. I think they could have worded that more simply, but that's a very common issue. But it's actually a legit bullet point, because what they're saying is internal and external. What does that mean? Internal is like within your team or within the company. External is usually like to the VP, the C-suite, or even to investors or people outside of the company, venture capitals. So these are important. Like if you don't know how to report and storytell appropriately and show the right numbers, they're going to be like, fire this guy. Like, I'm putting it blunt, they're not going to just fire you, but it will lead down that direction if they can't prove your worth. Let's do one more because I do want to show a contrast because we've been doing some big brands. Let's jump back to some smaller brands here to really kind of give you a sense of the, I guess, contrast. So this is a brand I've never heard of. It's called Zibuyu. It seems to be some type of Japanese or Chinese brand. Looking for a social media marketing manager / strategist. So this one's actually really to the point. So they're asking for a few things: 4 years of experience, a proven portfolio of case studies, expert level knowledge on the social media management, and then familiarity with a bunch of tools. But what are you doing? There's only a few bullet points here. So let me read these to you. Craft, document, and implement a comprehensive integrated social media strategy that defines our role, content mix, and goals. Like I said, goals are really important. It's usually follower and engagement based, but it can vary. Conduct deep dive audience research and social listening to uncover insights that inform content strategy, brand positioning, and new marketing opportunities. So guys, this is a role that's not necessarily going to let you just kind of do the grunt work and put your mind into autopilot. You're gonna be in there, boom, 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 working and working through things. 3, determine the strategic role of each platform. Define the content pillars and narrative for each. Lead pilot programs to test and scale. And then lastly, paid and organic integration. Work seamlessly with the performance marketing team to develop and budget for paid social strategies that amplify organic efforts, target new audiences, and achieve specific conversion objectives. And then lastly, mentorship. Provide guidance and direction to junior social media team members. So this is one where I'd actually kind of dig in further before really committing to, because it's still kind of vague on, are you creating all the content yourself? And if you don't have the video editing or Photoshop or graphic design chops, what are you going to do? Do you have a budget where you can kind of leverage that to learn these tools, or use an AI variant of these tools to kind of build what you need, or is there no budget? So you may have a lot of responsibility for this role. It would require some more digging beyond the job posting. But you can kind of see the trend here. With this type of role, it's more kind of a senior social strategy role where you can't just be, kind of being mindless and going on autopilot and just creating content and pushing it out and mindlessly responding to comments every day. You're actually going to be in there, every week. Your boss is probably going to be asking, what's the strategy? What's the game plan? What's the Q4 plan? What's the year-long plan? And you have to come up with a strategy that leads to lead generation and revenue, which is, a good deal of pressure on your shoulders. Like, how are you actually going to get people not just to engage with your content, but also get more traffic and sales? And that could be scary when, like, maybe 3 months in, your follower count or view count is not going up, and neither is the amount of sales you have. So that's kind of something you want to consider. Like, what type of role do you want in social media if you want to go down this path? And are you okay with the grunt work? There's pros and cons to that. Pros is maybe it's a bit mindless and you can be more relaxed doing it, or maybe it's not mindless to you. You actually enjoy the creativity of responding to comments in different ways with a positive tone, even if they are upset or leave negative, really nasty comments, which oftentimes can happen quite a lot on social media. And the con to that is you don't get the ability to manage the strategy, which is maybe more fun or less grunt work. But then, it's pros and cons. If you get the strategy, there's a lot more pressure and responsibility to perform. And you don't have to do the repetitive grunt work of just constantly doing the same thing over and over again, which may get boring. So there's that. I want to just touch on a couple last ones I have locked and loaded just to give you an idea. This is a really concise job posting with only a few bullet points, which is why I think this is a great one to study. This is for a company called Bondi, which I've never heard of, but it's already had over 100 applicants. So that's another thing to consider. Social media as a job is likely very competitive, but you also got to keep in mind that probably 80% of these applicants have no idea how to structure their resume, have no real tangible experience on their resume that qualifies them. So if you follow my tips, I think you could jump past most of them, but it's still going to be very competitive. Anyhow, you'll be leading US social presence, crafting and executing strategies, create authentic viral content from short videos to trends, memes, and stories that resonate with Gen Z and Gen Alpha. Build and engage community. Okay, so connect with creators, micro-influencers, collaborate cross-functionally, work closely with product creative growth teams to align social storytelling to brand vision. Monitor and analyze performance. There we go again, analytics, really important. To measure success, optimize campaigns, and report on insights. And then lastly, be the cultural voice. Stay ahead of trends, aesthetics, and subcultures to shape youth digital identity. This role requires 3 to 5 years in experience, ideally in tech, lifestyle, and youth. And then, a few other things that we've mentioned before. Now, I think what's kind of important to note here is that, you need technical skills. So this role is actually saying hands-on experience with tools like CapCut, Canva, Adobe Suite are necessary. So for those technical skills, some social media roles will require you to be that semi-graphic designer, which I think this is one of those roles. You have to be careful. If you don't have that, you need to get that, or you're either not going to get those jobs, or you're going to have a really hard time juggling that on the job. Another big thing here is literally the fact that this job is something where it's not an entry-level role. This is something literally saying 3 to 5 years of experience. So it's not something you could just transition into. You need some experience. And then on top of that, it's a role that I think really, you have to love the brand or the company you're doing it for. As you can tell, you're going to be spending a lot of time speaking on behalf of the client externally in comments, and then internally just building content. So if you have no passion or interest in Bondi, that can be an issue. Or at the very least, you really need to understand the tone of voice, the culture, the values, so you can speak in the appropriate style. So that's just really important as well. Let's do a couple more because these are getting fun. This is also very super concise job posting. I've not seen a job posting this short before, but I think this is a great one to just kind of reference. So this is for a company called Jack, and they are a AI-powered consumer discovery startup, helping people explore local dining, nightlife, and experience. So what they're looking for is, get this, there's literally only 5 bullets. Lead social strategy and execute across platforms. Create high-performing short-form video content. Manage influencer partnerships. Build and optimize the content calendar using insights and trends. And collaborate with creators, freelancers, and internal teams to produce engaging content. So there you go. Once again, you have to make sure that this is something where you're not designing and making all the video edits from start to finish and filming. That's a lot to put on one person's plate, and it's multi-skill. They did mention collaborating with other freelancers and internal teams, but you'd have to verify that once you get to the job interview. What else? Create high-performing short-form videos. That's also a little bit of not a red flag, but like, okay, let's dive in. That's great, but let's make sure we understand who's responsible for what. But with this one, it seems like it's saying content, script, shoot, edit, and publish. So you're doing a lot. And only 4 requirements. 5 years of managing social consumer brands, proven experience with TikTok and Instagram growth, strong creative instincts and video production skills, and then a self-starter in a fast-paced collaborative environment. So literally, this is like a job that's just bare bones. And I think the only unique thing is the partnership with influencers and campaigns. So that's another new piece of a social media thing that's really coming out. Partnering either organically or being via sponsorships with other influencers in your niche is a huge way of exploding in terms of the traffic that your brand reaches, which can lead to sales in the long run. So that's another piece to it. Like, how do we collaborate? How do we reach these influencers? How do we get them to say yes? Is it money? Is it something else? Okay, I know this video has gone on so long, but this is getting really fun. We got this one last one. It's for a brand called Insight Global. Over 120 applicants, posted 1 week ago. Insight Global is seeking a lead social media manager to elevate social media strategy across a digital media and entertainment company in Sunnyvale. So I don't know if this is a middleman. They sometimes do that where it's an agency hiring on behalf of another company, but that could be the case here. Also a very concise job posting, which I really like. So they have required skills and nice to have. I'm just going to skip the nice to have and just focus on the required. 5 years of experience, background with entertainment, gaming, or media, proven track record of building and scaling social channels that drive measurable revenue or partnership outcomes. Guys, the biggest advice I have for you is nailing this bullet point. Anyone who has successfully scaled and built their own social media account on any channel really, especially if it's a hot channel right now like TikTok or YouTube, and you have the numbers and proof to back it up, dude, put that on your resume. That is going to help you stand out and get you the job. That's the bullet point that matters. Strong understanding of influencer ecosystems, affiliate marketing, and social commerce, creative thinker, storytelling, passion, leadership, communication, collaboration, data savvy with ability to translate metrics into actionable business. So a lot of that is kind of fluff, but still important. I think having storytelling ability, leadership ability, collaboration, and data analysis skills are important, but those can easily become buzzwords if you just kind of put them on your resume and do nothing else. As I explained in my other videos on how to get jobs in this industry of digital marketing, you need to show, not just tell. So rather than say I'm a great storyteller, you tell a compelling story. Rather than just say I'm a good leader, you show that you led a team successfully. That's really what's going to make these bullet points turn from just fluff that most people just treat as fluff into like, wow, that's actually really good. And the last bullet point is experience leading a global social media function or managing multi-brand social ecosystems. So this last one's actually more of an advanced tip, but it is important. When you are trying to be a successful top tier candidate and talent, sometimes it may be worth getting a job at a recognizable brand, or if you can't do that, like there's alternatives like working at my version of that is working at an agency where some of my clients have been global brands or near global brands or bigger brands. But sometimes even if the job is not perfect, you can kind of see it as a stepping stone of sorts where it's like, yeah, if I can work with this company, even if it's just for a year or two, now I have that on my resume and I can prove that I was very good at managing and doing well here. Because in the future, as you can see with this job, they're literally saying, and as you've seen, it happens more than once, they'll say, experience with leading and scaling a global social media brand or something like this. Leading a global social media function or managing multi-brand social ecosystems. So many technical jargon. Guys, if you need to write a resume or job posting one day, don't use this much jargon. But point is, hopefully this was valuable. I cross-referenced real-world fresh job postings, not just talk to you and gave you theoretical advice on what social media manager does, but I cross-referenced that with real examples to show you how the market's changed a bit and how what used to be what a social media manager is responsible for has changed a little bit, and this is really what they're looking for and how to actually get those jobs. Guys, subscribe if you want more free advice like this, and also As I mentioned, I do coaching, so on the side, I help people get jobs in this industry. So a link is down below if you want to reach out. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.